Hey Sony, these are 10 things you need to steal from the Xbox Series X. The first thing you need to steal is smart delivery. So leading up to the Xbox Series X and PS5 launching, Xbox was hammering super hard the idea of this thing called smart delivery. It seemed like a gimmick at first because on paper it sounds like such a basic feature, but what it is that no matter what Xbox you're playing on, it'll automatically download the best version of the game that you want to play. So if you're on your Xbox Series X and you download Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's going to download the Xbox Series X version without you having to do anything. And if you're on your Xbox One, your save will be there, but it'll be the Xbox One version of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Same goes for Series S. The first game where people really started to notice the lack of smart delivery was Spider-Man Miles Morales, which was launching the PS4 version for a lot of people, because you actually have to go into a separate menu and tell your PS5 which version of the game you want to launch. And then Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War had the exact same issue where the console would refuse to download the PS5 version. Even if you downloaded the PS5 version, when you launched the game, it would delete the PS5 version and then start downloading the PS4 version again. Like the PS5 was adamant about playing the PS4 version of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. It was just totally bizarre. People were hoping that Sony would figure this out and push out an update that just made it start working like the Xbox, but they haven't yet, and it really became a problem with the PS5 version of Avengers. Now, if you wanted to play the Xbox Series X version of Avengers, it just downloaded it the day it was released and you were good to go. But if you wanted to play the PS5 version, you had to download the PS4 version, download your save, export it the right way, then download the PS5 version, and then import your save. It was a really cumbersome process that no one really liked, and there's no solution for it. It just works that way. Now, the reason I think that is because they keep adding these games to PS Plus and PS Now, and there is a way to upgrade a lot of these games free to PS5 unless you're on those services. So they want to keep things as separate as possible there. So like when Final Fantasy VII Remake shows up on PS Plus, which it did earlier this year, they can make it that it's just the PS4 version. And I think that's stupid, and they should update it so that it has smart delivery, because things should be simple in the new generation, like they are on Xbox. The next feature Sony really needs to steal from Xbox is Quick Resume. It's one of the coolest things on the Xbox One, and basically what it is a way to save state your games all the way down to the original Xbox and then all the way back up to the Xbox Series X. It's awesome. The reason people are really starting to notice the lack of this feature on PS5 comes down to the way Returnal works. It's a roguelike, so when you die, you basically have to start the entire game over. We all know what that means. We've played stuff like Hades and Dead Cells, but the problem is runs in Returnal can take 2, 3, 4, even 5 hours to complete the entire game, and you cannot save during a run once again. So I know that the way that Sony would probably want you to pause would be to just put the PS5 in rest mode, but there's this new feature where the PS5 can automatically update when it's in rest mode, and guess what? That closes down your game. If the PS5 had some sort of quick resume where it could save state where you are in Returnal, that would be totally fine. It would be fine if your PS5 updated while it was in rest mode, but it doesn't have that feature, so the game quits, and then you lose your progress on a 2.5 hour run where you just beat the second boss for the first time and you got the trophy and you're so excited, and then now you have to start all over and you don't want to because it's hard. Like, even if they updated it so you could just have one PS5 game save stated and one PS4 game save stated, that would be great. I'm still playing Ghost of Tsushima right now, and I'm also playing Returnal. So if I could save where I'm at Returnal, switch over to Ghost of Tsushima, I would just be a very happy gamer. I just want the simple stuff here, nothing too complex. Just get the feature on the console and then we can worry about making it more advanced, you know? This next one is kind of like 2 points that I'm combining into one, but the first thing they really need to do is expand the base storage of the PS5. 825 gigabytes is just not enough. We thought that games were going to start to get smaller and smaller as this generation went on, and to be fair, Warzone specifically has gotten a lot smaller as time has gone on, gotta give them credit there, but at the end of the day, 800 gigabytes is just not enough. You gotta store a lot of stuff on your PS5. You gotta store PS4 games like Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, Horizon Zero Dawn. All of those were just free in some capacity or heavily discounted, and they're huge games that take up a huge portion of your hard drive. And then when stuff like Returnal comes out and you pop the disc into your PS5, it still has to do that lame copy feature where you need double the size of the game free on your hard drive so that it can copy the game over from the disc, and that's a lot harder when you only have 825 gigabytes to use. So they really need to start shipping this thing with at least a terabyte. I really want that to happen soon. And then the second half of this point is expandable storage. We have talked a lot about that on this channel because it's the one thing Sony really needs to update the PS5 to be able to use. We know there's a port in the PS5 where you can put in an NVMe drive. You can get one that actually works on the PS5, but if you take the whole thing apart and put the drive in, it doesn't actually work, and that's super frustrating. Now, in the spring update for the PS5, they did give us the ability to offload our PS5 games onto external storage, and you can also store PS4 games on external storage, but I don't want a huge hard drive hanging off my PS5 just to move games over to when something new and fun comes out to play. That just doesn't seem like a great solution. When on the Xbox, I can buy this memory card thing that just slots in the back. You can't even tell it's plugged into the console, and that adds an entire extra terabyte to the Xbox Series X, which has an onboard terabyte of storage already. They're just doing it so much better over there, and I feel like it's just Sony getting comfortable because they're on top, you know? Guys, I am absolutely blown away by the support this channel has gotten so far, so now I want to give back to you. I'm giving away this PS5 to a random subscriber, and everything you need to know on how to enter is down in the description. Man, you guys probably knew this one was going to come up, but the biggest thing, in my opinion, that Sony really needs to steal from the Xbox Series X is some form of backwards compatibility. So if you have an Xbox Series X right now, you can play Xbox Series X games, you can play Xbox One games, you can play Xbox 360 games, and you can play original Xbox games. They're available to download on the store, but if you're one of those people like me who kept a lot of your Xbox 360 discs, you can pop those right into your Series X and it'll download the version of that game from the store, and you don't have to pay anything. It is absolutely awesome. On the PS5, you can play PS4 games and PS5 games. That is literally it. And I know Sony has a lot more really good PS4 games that people want to revisit than Xbox does on the 360, that's for sure, but still, the option needs to be there for me to play PS3 games whenever the hell I want, because there's a ton of good PS3 games. And I know you're gonna say PS Now is a thing, but we just did a video where we went and tried PS Now, we put our money where our mouth is, and that service does not work very well. It's blocky, it's fuzzy, it doesn't run games better than they ran on the PS3, which is exactly what you get on the Xbox. If you put an Xbox 360 game in your Xbox Series X, it generally will run better than it did on the 360. So when you look at what Sony's doing, it's honestly embarrassing that they still have not figured out some way to compete with Xbox on that front, because Xbox was able to do it for an entire generation. It's crazy. And speaking of improved performance, that applies to the Xbox One generation as well. A lot of games just got an FPS boost. I think they have like 97 games on Xbox, where if you download the Xbox One version, they just run better on your Series X than they ever did on the old console. And it's good stuff too, like Dishonored, Prey, Mad Max, Titanfall 2, pretty much any big game you want to play on the Xbox Series X at this point will run better than it did last generation. And Sony is not doing that at all. I kind of went back and forth putting this on the list because Sony does compete with it in a weird way of their own, but I have to talk about Game Pass. We all know what Game Pass is at this point. You pay $15 a month, you get Xbox Live Gold and a massive selection of games you can download to your Xbox Series X, your Xbox One, or your PC. And there are some pretty good games on the service. Now, Sony's way to compete with that is, of course, PS Now. I don't like PS Now, but they also have the PS Plus collection, which is really good. It's a very limited selection of games, but it's pretty much a collection of every good first-party PS4 game, plus a few other third-party games that are really, really good, like Persona 5 Royal, for example. It's the age-old question of quantity on the Xbox side versus quality on the PS5 side, and it really depends on if you had a PS4 in the past. Like, if you had a PS4, you probably played every game on the PS Plus collection, so Game Pass is the winner for you. But if you just got a PS5 and you never had a PS4, you have some of the best games ever made at your fingertips. So yeah, you're not getting 1,000 different titles you can download to your PS5 for $15 a month, but for the price you pay for PlayStation Plus already, you're getting the best game Sony's ever made. And I feel like that's just better, even though there's less of them. Like, you get Bloodborne, man. Xbox doesn't have Bloodborne. People have been waiting to see if Sony is going to compete with Game Pass, and I've heard that the competitor they're working on will include video content instead of more games, and that really makes sense because they can justify charging $70 for their games and holding to that price because they're just that good. We're gonna put our nerd hat on for this next thing the PS5 needs to steal from the Xbox, and it's called variable refresh rate. If you picked up Assassin's Creed Valhalla with your PS5 at launch, you probably noticed if your TV was at 60 Hz, you would get screen tearing because the game wasn't actually able to lock itself at 60 frames per second. Now, if you were playing on an Xbox Series X on a TV that supports variable refresh rate, you wouldn't see that screen tearing because if the game wasn't able to meet 60 frames per second, your TV would drop to whatever frame rate was being displayed by the game, and then you wouldn't get screen tearing. And I hate screen tearing so much that I keep saying it over and over again in this sentence. Now, as someone who has an Xbox Series X and a PS5 and a TV that supports variable refresh rate, I'm most likely going to buy pretty much every third-party game on the Xbox Series X because I know I'm not going to see screen tearing. If you don't know what screen tearing is, you'll notice it when you see it. It's basically like if the image is cut in half and shifted when you pan the camera over. The reason I'm using Assassin's Creed Valhalla as an example is because there's a lot of moments where you'll climb a mountain and you have to do the synchronization point or whatever, and then the camera pans around, and it's totally awesome until you realize your screen is being cut in half as the camera pans around and it's super jittery. So it seems like a minor feature to request variable refresh rate from the PS5, but the fact that Xbox does it makes it not so minor. Like, PS5 should do it. And staying on the topic of basic features that the Xbox Series X has that the PS5 doesn't, they have got to figure out some way to allow the PS5 to output in 1440p. I cannot tell you how disappointing it was last week when I went to stream Returnal on the PSReady Twitch channel and I realized that plugging it into my 1440p monitor meant that I was going to have to play the game in 1080p. That is just ridiculous that Sony put out a console in 2021 that runs games that are made to output at 1440p, but the actual console can't. Like, that's not an uncommon resolution. It's 2K. Most people have a 1440p monitor over a 4K one at this point. Some journalists actually asked Sony why they didn't include 1440p output on the console, and they said they thought people weren't going to want a game on a monitor with their PS5. But if you want to play at 144 Hz, your options really are slim if you want to do it on a TV right now, unless you have a boatload of money to spend. So the easiest way to experience 144 Hz is to buy a monitor that supports 144 Hz. And the standard resolution on those monitors right now just happens to be 1440p. Now, they've said they're working on an update to allow the PS5 to output 1440p, but we have not seen that yet, and we are in May of 2021. So Sony, get moving on that one. You just released the spring update. It should have been in that, but I'll give you a few more months to figure it out. And then I'm gonna do nothing because I have no power over you. The final thing I want to highlight here on my list of things the PS5 needs to steal from the Xbox Series X is letting you use old controllers on whatever game you want. So if you have an Xbox Series X, you can use any controller you want on it from the Xbox One forward. And there were multiple revisions of the Xbox One controller. You've got the Elite controller, you've got the one that has Bluetooth, you've got the Elite controller 2. They did a special Gears of War edition that was kind of different. They've done some Halo ones. Any of those controllers will work with any game on the Xbox Series X. On the PS5, it's completely locked down. So if you're playing a PS5 game, you've got to use the DualSense. And if you're playing a PS4 game, you can use the DualSense, but you can also use a DualShock 4. So we know that the PS5 can accept input from a DualShock 4, and the DualShock 4 has like 99% of the features of the DualSense except for the adaptive triggers. So I feel like all Sony has to do is turn a setting on in the settings menu where it says you can use a DualShock 4 on a PS5 game, it just won't have the adaptive triggers. We figured it out, guys. It was that simple. That's all I want. I have so many cool DualShock 4s. We've got the gold one, I've got an Uncharted 4 one, I've got this cool Last of Us 2 one that's see-through, I've got the 500 million one they did that's blue and see-through, really like that one. Can't use any of those controllers on my PS5 unless I'm playing a PS4 game, and that's just annoying. I paid $500 for the console, it has backwards compatibility with the PS4, let me use that controller with the PS5. So there you have it, guys, my list of 10 things that the PS5 needs to steal from the Xbox Series X. I know this came off pretty negative, but it's from a place of love because I want my PS5 to have these features that are really good for my Xbox Series X because generally speaking, the games are a lot better on my PS5 and I want to have fun using it. But if I know something's not there, it's just annoying. And remember, if you want to stay PS ready, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with your notifications set to all. Let me know what you think of all of these things down in the comments below. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.